This is called to order the July 6, 2022 regular meeting of the Ducktown Council. At this time, I'd like to ask Lieutenant Missy Clark if she'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. This time we're going to go on to item number 2, public comments. If anyone would like to address the council, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. There being no one, we'll close public comments. Item number 3, the consent agenda. This evening we have the minutes from the May 4th, 2022 regular meeting, the minutes from the May 18th, 2022 mid-month meeting, minutes from the June 1st, 2022 regular meeting, minutes from the June 15th, 2022 mid-month meeting, Resolution 22-10, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Duck, North Carolina, authorizing the conveyance of obsolete property to Ukraine, and Resolution 22-11, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Duck, North Carolina, adopting uniform guidance conflict of interest policy. Before I ask for a motion, I'd like to ask the Town Manager to make an addition to item number E, Resolution 22-10.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Upon the advice of our attorney, we would like to change the last paragraph of Resolution 22-10 to be a little more clear as to where the vests are going. So they're going to be donated to Samaritan's Purse. It's the nonprofit that will receive them and then transmit them to the warfighting effort in Ukraine. So that will read, now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council, Town of Duck, North Carolina, that donation of obsolete ballistic body armor be conveyed to Samaritan's Purse to the benefit of the people of Ukraine involved in the fighting Russian forces and supports this effort that could save lives. So that just basically redirects or makes it very clear exactly where the vests are going. And that's required by the statute. We need to have that to a nonprofit.
Are there any questions by council before I call for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. We approve the consent agenda with the change to Resolution 22-10 as presented.
Any discussion on the motion on the floor?
I'd just like to say that the minutes are amazing. Thank you for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of meat on the bones in these minutes, and thank you very much for the detail.
Especially the minutes for the 6-hour meeting. There being none, all in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Just one point here I forgot to mention up front, and for the town clerk, Rob Mooney has been excused from tonight's meeting. Fitness. I'm going to go item number 4, special presentations. Introduction of our 2022 lifeguards, and I see that Merrick has arrived. I guess Merrick is not arrived.
We have Caroline.
Oh, here he comes. No further ado, here comes Merrick.
Oh, coming in with his microphone on. Merrick.
How you doing? I'm Merrick Dabrowski, Chief Lifeguard. We're just going to pass the mic around. It's kind of tough to make it 6 o'clock since we're on the beach until 6, and there's some bad traffic. Order of our whole staff, we have about 50 people, and they'll introduce themselves and tell you where they're from, their full name, how they got here. No, don't take too much time. All right.
I am Clay Given, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
Where do you go to school to?
I go to Virginia Tech.
I'm Lindsay Graham. I'm also from Richmond, and I go to UVA.
I'm Emily Ormson. I'm from Folsom, California, and I go to University of Evansville.
I'm Peter Cronbush. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia, and I go to Albemarle High School.
I'm Maggie Doyle. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and I also go to UVA.
I'm Peter Knight. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I also go to UVA.
I'm Ellie Gardell. I'm from Southern Shores, and I go to East Carolina.
Hello, I'm Caroline Clissold. I'm from Southern Shores, and I go to NC State.
I'm Kaz Dabrowski. I'm from Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, and I graduated from Pfeiffer University last spring.
I'm Jack Murphy, and I go to Virginia Tech, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
My name is AJ Bartolotta. I'm from Currituck, and I'm going to JMU. I'm AJ Bartolotta. I'm from Currituck, and I'm going to James Madison this fall.
I'm Ben Melvin. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I go to VMI.
I'm Gloria Topolovich. I'm from Greensboro, and I go to UNCGA.
Okay. And it was kind of a hot one today, yeah, to say the least. And now we've got to fly down to South Nags Head for a lifeguard competition. Starts in about 10 minutes, but we'll get there.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for all you're doing.
Bye-bye.
Looks like a nice crew.
Going on to item number 4B, a special presentation. A presentation by Employee Committee of the Town of New Core Values. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Town Manager Drew Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to Jessica Barnes and her committee. I just wanted to acknowledge Jessica's work on this project that began in the fall, and she'll kind of give you the whole history of it. One of the things that I wanted to accomplish within the first couple of years of being here, I really wanted to do it in the first year, but it took a little longer than wanted to, was to come up with an agreed upon set of internal values that all of our team members could agree that we're going to live by. So it's been a long process, but it's been very rewarding to me to see how the staff has responded and stepped up in seeing some leadership shown by a lot of different members of our team. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to reveal these to you.
Does Christian have it? Is she doing it, or am I doing it? It always freezes on me. Okay, so while that's coming up, just a quick little background. So one of our goals for this past year has been to reset our internal culture here in Duck, and we wanted to make sure our coworkers were included to help guide us in this process. providing validator to come meet with all of the employees at once in a larger working session. So first was our employee work session with the outside consultant. We had Eleanor Green come, and prior to the meeting, she asked us to send out a survey to all the employees, just kind of getting a feel for what values were important to them so that we could make our time all together more effective. The town employees met in this larger group session, determining what behaviors and characteristics were most important to them, that they'd like to exhibit it when serving our community, working with each other, and as well from our town leadership. After that, we brought that information from the larger session back to our department directors, and it was determined then that we would create an employee committee. And we had one representative kind of from each department. So from Town Hall, we had Kay Nickens, Jim Gould. From police, we had John Gilreath, and then fire, Greg Fiala. We met repeatedly to establish core values that were most important to us as well as our teams. And we definitely relied on those results from the larger group session, and we met probably, 4 or 5 times over the course of a few months. We then brought our draft of what we had completed back to the department directors for discussion. We also forwarded this all out to our teams to get their feedback. We did tweak it a little bit just based on some of the comments we received from the staff. And then we are very thankful for the efforts of our coworkers who took the time to develop this set of values. This was not an easy task, but for everyone involved, they had the determination, the willingness to give their input, thus making our organization even better. We are very proud to present to you this evening the Town Duck Core Values, and this restarted. There we go. So with this brings our value statement. As a respectful and open workplace, we support a culture, a culture where all employees have an avenue to share ideas, meet their professional goals, and help create solutions to continuously improve our service to each other and our community. And then with that, we bring you SOAR. Grounded in our values, we are able to soar to success with service, ownership, accountability, and respect. And with that, I'm going to let each of them talk a little bit more about each of those values. Okay?
So the first one that I will be discussing is service, and this was something that was really important in our discussions. And as it reads, as public servants, we will demonstrate our sense of duty to the organization and community by being responsive, knowledgeable, and proficient, striving to exceed the expectations of those we serve, and also being uncompromising in our focus on integrity.
So with ownership, we decided as curators of the Duck experience, we will encourage individual leadership and growth and empower team members to make innovative improvements. We will engage in active decision-making and problem-solving, prioritize opportunities to challenge the status quo, and to seek out creative solutions through collaboration and research. We will seek out and utilize available learning opportunities and resources needed to provide quality service.
A is for accountability. As stewards of the public's trust, we will maintain a culture of transparency by clearly communicating expectations to one another and those we serve. We will insist on a culture that values ethical conduct, personal responsibility, and mutual respect. We will take responsibility for our actions and results. We will commit to a clear and consistent expectation aligned with the mission of the organization. And we will hold one another to the highest ethical standard.
No, I'm here to talk about respect. Oh, my fault. I don't do this PowerPoint stuff. Respect. As considerate coworkers, we value the expertise and experience and experience out team members. There's an out. Okay, just making sure I'm literate, I promise. And the experience our team members bring to their roles. And we embrace our differences while being united in our common professional goals. We will, that's blurry, I got astigmatism. Affirm the worth and dignity of each individual coworker by not tolerating their mistreatment by supervisors, coworkers, or people outside the organization. Welcome different perspectives and actively listen to one another. Treat all those we encounter courteously, patiently, and equitably. That's it. That's respect.
So I just wanted to say again, thank you all for your hard work and all the other town employees as well, department directors. Does anybody have any questions for us?
I don't really have any questions. That's an excellent piece of work. And
Great.
It's great the way that you pulled together and then pulled the whole organization together and then went up the chain and got everybody's buy-in. We think this is excellent. Very well done, and we appreciate all your hard work.
No problem. Thank you.
I have to echo that too. And I guess you're just going to be able to refer to this at any time and pull it out and use it, So thank you guys. Really great work.
Thank you.
I would just have a couple of comments, Jessica or Andrew. So I think it's excellent, a great piece of work. Should we maybe write this up in our DuckTales thing and just tell the town what our people have been doing to, create this type of, value statement in the workplace? I think people would like to know that, And then I think some sort of ongoing effort to keep it in front of all of us. I don't know, some trinkets, some, desk things or hats or duck sores or something like that, just to kind of keep it right out there so we all remember it. It's excellent. Very well done.
And we did start an employee newsletter, so we have started distributing that, and we're kind of incorporating that every month. And then we're also using this to improve our performance evaluations as well.
Great. I assume this will be part of your orientation as you bring new
Yes.
employees on?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah, and the idea of putting it out in the public in the newsletter would be great, even if you don't get into this much detail, or maybe it's on the website that you can link to it, all the detail. But yeah, the acronym is terrific, and even just the bullet points would really get the message across to the public. So nicely done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Going on to item number 5, public hearings. Tonight we have a public hearing discussion, consideration of ordinance 22-04, an ordinance of the Council of the Town of Duck, North Carolina, amending the certification requirements for the town's flood damage prevention ordinance. I'm going to turn it over to Robert Hobbs, our town attorney, to run the public hearing. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we'll open the public hearing for ordinance 22-04. During this hearing, the council will sit as a legislative body. At this time, Donna Creef will make a presentation on behalf of the town staff.
Good evening. As your attorney said, this is a public hearing tonight on an amendment to the Duck flood damage prevention ordinance. Back in 2020, there were new flood maps adopted, and there was an extensive update of the flood damage prevention ordinance, the flood ordinance, as we call it in the House. It's easier to say that instead of that long title. And part of those amendments were in conjunction with the local elevation standard that the town adopted of 10 feet that applied in shaded X and X zones. And those requirements established that a pre-construction and an under-construction elevation certificate were not needed in the shaded X and X zones if you could submit a survey that demonstrated that with spot elevations, but it did require that a finished construction elevation would be required in shaded X and X zones. Fast forward 2 years, we've had 2 years of experience, and it's become apparent that the ability to submit spot elevations could also be used in lieu of the finished construction elevation on those lots that are zoned shaded X and unshaded X, where their elevations are above the 10 feet naturally. It represents a cost savings for property owners. There's no incentive under the community rating system for the town to have those elevation certificates, and so it's a win-win, if you will. And that's what the point of the public hearing is tonight, is to hear from the public on whether that's beneficial. Most of the other local governments in Dare County do not require the finished construction elevation certificate. They have very similar language that you can use the spot elevations to establish that local elevation standard for compliance with the flood ordinance. The draft language in its full context is in your packet, and I'm going to stop right there. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If not, we'll conduct the public hearing and move forward.
Questions? Thank you. At this time, are there any members of the planning board who'd like to make a presentation on this proposal?
I am James Cofield. I am the chairman of the Duck Planning Board. We held a hearing a couple of months ago, and the presentation was made before us, and without much to do, we approved the proposal 5-0. I don't think there's much need to go into a lot of detail because it was not a very controversial proposal, and it was pretty straightforward, and that's my report. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, James. At this time, if there are any members of the public who wish to address the proposal, if you'll please make your presentation at this time, and please state your name and address. Come forward, please.
Good evening. My name is Duke Garrity. I'm Government Affairs Director, Outer Banks Home Builders Association. I'm here to ask you to concur with the Planning Board's decision and vote this in. It's a very simple step. You're saving our clients anywhere from $600 to $1,000 per house, something that's not needed. We can make other arrangements and put everything we need on the site plan, and we'll hope we'll go further from there. I just want to tell you, this probably won't be the last time we're here. I know for a fact there are 2 bills in Congress right now to change risk rating 2.0, and I got a memo that went out from FEMA to Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell last week with 104 suggested changes coming up, and they'll be investigating them. I don't know what. It only took them about 5 years to put it together. But I thank you for your time. I thank planning staff and the planning board for their votes on it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who'd like to address this? Okay. Seeing none, any remaining questions before we close the public hearing? Okay. Go ahead and close the public hearing. You may now deliberate on this proposal. Keep in mind that 2 readings are required to adopt the ordinance, but if the ordinance can be adopted at the first reading, or the ordinance can be adopted at the first reading if the ordinance is approved by 2/3 vote of all members, counting all members, not just those who are present. So basically, you can adopt it tonight if you have all 4 votes in favor. So now you may deliberate and take whatever action you deem appropriate.
Thank you, Robert. Any additional comments or discussion by the council?
Seems very straightforward to me, and definitely a win-win. Thanks for the work on it.
Always good when we can eliminate a regulation and save someone money.
I know the planning board took care of that workshop night, right? And they approved there. That's the only reason.
If there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 22-04, amending certification requirements for the town's flood damage control plan.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion does pass 4-0. Going on, item number 6, old business items deferred from previous meetings. 6A, discussion consideration of resolution 22-09, a resolution adopting an updated emergency operations plan. I'll turn over to Chief Black.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'll keep my presentation short, which will surprise you all. So tonight, we're looking to, again, have you adopt any changes we put into the emergency operations plan. How we got here, we did our training with Dare County Emergency Management, so we participated in a countywide exercise. We then met as a staff, the directors met in May and reviewed our operations plan, made any changes and updates. We then came to you June 15th and did a roundtable and talk through our most likely scenario, which is a hurricane. And then I think the best example of our emergency planning you saw on Monday at 9 a.m. with our parade. We have that incident action plan. If you'd like a copy, we can send it to you. 35-page plan to do Monday morning. And that really probably best reflects what town does with emergency operations and town planning. We have a joke amongst staff, stay in your box, and we trust that box. So one of our values being accountability. If everyone is responsible for the box within the org chart, within the plan, we have very successful outcomes. So with that, we made very few changes. Some were grammatical. The biggest change you received this afternoon, which is Appendix A, in just how we define essential personnel. We have a 40-person staff plus volunteers. We're all essential, but how we'll utilize them in an emergency will depend on how big the event, but we don't expect all 40 people to be sitting here for a hurricane. So we spelled that a little bit more. We spelled that out a little bit more in Appendix A. But with that, I'll take any questions. We really did a hard look at this plan in 2020. Actually sent it to the county, who they reviewed it, and then sent it back. So they were minor changes except for that essential personnel piece. And I think you've seen us work it over the last few months. So I'll take any questions, and then it's in your hands, Mayor.
Any questions for the chief?
No, just thank you for all the work on this.
Great.
I just the one question, I thought it was a great plan, very well put together. How do we pressure test it during the course of the year to make sure all people can really come together the way they're supposed to? Do we have a process for that?
Sure. So what we'll do, we always try to get in front of you at least once a year and do the tabletop walkthrough. If you look on the last page, besides the annexes, we have appendices, and those are the breakdowns. Those are the really meat and potatoes part of the plan. So we'll break those down. A good one will be with Sandy soon in doing damage assessment using Crisis Track. So what we'll do, we'll take bits and pieces. The ability to respond during an event is kind of our wheelhouse. We respond every day to things. So we'll take pieces of it. Damage assessment's a big one that we really need to train on, so that'll be a separate training if we have to do anything with PIOs. And then we all look individually at our little pieces of the pie within our departments. And then obviously, we'll have meetings. So
I have no doubt about the police and the fire responding. I'm just wondering whether, we should make sure that what works is us getting the other resources together.
Sure.
To support you guys.
Sure. I think probably the best thing you've seen over the last year or two is Drew Pearson and James Wooten, who does a lot of the planning. He is holding exercises multiple times a year. So that relationship with Dare County, because we need them, especially for resource management, being able to do the special events training, doing the hurricane training. I've done a couple others. We did an active shooter event. We've been able to really work closely with them, and I feel we have every one of those exercises shows us how we are working with everyone else on the beach. So
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll add to what the chief said. So for our major events, so 4th of July and Jazz Fest, we operate under the incident management system. So it's kind of the jargon and the vernacular of that system is used by all the staff during those. So it helps us practice it. There will be some additional practice as far as we're encouraging office staff to have a go bag. So if we say, hey, you need to leave here and not come back, what are you going to take with you? And we're encouraging everyone to have a checklist. And we're going to practice that. We won't empty out town hall at any given time, but we may tell a couple people, all right, today's your day, go home.
Yeah.
And get set up and get to work. So, and I know you weren't able to attend the exercise that the council did at mid-month.
Yeah, sorry for that.
So that we are. I mean, this is top of mind for obviously for public safety, but it's really permeating the entire organization. So we're all familiar and ready to go.
Thanks. Drew, along those same lines, understanding we use this for the 4th of July activity, were there anything that we learned coming out of that that would adjust our plan, or the plan work?
So, yes, as I mentioned, so we do use this for 4th of July and Jazz Fest. We have not met yet as a team to do the after action for 4th of July. I'm confident that there will be lessons learned and ways that we can improve.
Any further discussion here on council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to authorize a public hearing. I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution 22-09, resolution adopting the updated emergency operations plan.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Chief. Going on to item number 7, new business, discussion and consideration of authorizing a public hearing on ordinance 22-05, amending several sections of the Duck Town Code to accommodate the addition of residential duplex structures as a permitted use in the C1 Neighborhood Commercial Conventional Zoning District. Donna?
So this item is a zoning text amendment, and this is a legislative item for the board to consider. The applicant is Mr. Marty Barnett on behalf of the property owner, Andrew Meredith, and they are both here in the audience tonight. Mr. Meredith owns 1448 Duck Road, on which he operates a water sports business there, and it is zone C1. And he has applied for a text amendment to the C1 to add duplexes as a permitted use in the C1 district. In conjunction with that text amendment to the C1 district, there would also need to be an amendment to the definition section to add a definition of duplex. There is not a definition of duplex in the zoning ordinance, but there is one in Chapter 50 of the Duck Town Code, and we have pulled that as part of this presentation just so that there's consistency between the two ordinances and the definitions. And then there would also need to be an amendment to Section 156.040, which is the table of permitted and prohibited uses. And that particular specific language is included in your packet so that you can see those amendments in context. Back in 2014, Mr. Meredith was approved. He had an amendment to his special use permit to add a 12,000 square foot structure there, 12,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor with a 600 square foot apartment on the second floor. Both of those uses are permitted in the C1 district. So you have the commercial use of the water sports, and then you have the apartment on the second floor. In 2004, the town of Duck amended their zoning ordinance for all of their commercial districts, the VC, the C1, and the C2, and removed single-family residential structures from those districts. Previously, single-family structures had been permitted in those districts. I went back and looked at all of those minutes to see what the intent was at that time, and based on that review and the minutes, it appeared that the town council at that time felt that it was important that the commercial districts and those properties that were zoned commercially in those 3 districts be developed commercially and not as residential uses. So they amended the zoning ordinance to delete those districts, and at that time they also added some language in the non-conforming section because there were single-family structures, and there are still single-family structures in those 3 zoning districts. As part of the staff presentation, I did go back and check what some of the other local zoning districts are doing, Currituck County, Duck Southern Shores, and the other towns in Dare County, and all of them do allow single-family zoning districts in their commercial districts. Typically, in the planning world, you have, if you think of a pyramid, you have residential and commercial, and if it's the higher end districts, typically it allows the less intense uses. So it's generally found that your residential uses, single-family uses, are allowed in all of your commercial districts. So at the time that the town did that in 2004, they kind of mixed that up a little bit because they felt that it was important at that time to have the commercial property developed commercially, even though there was some single-family residential structures in those districts, and they continue there today. Fast forward to 2022, and the staff had in an encounter with Mr. Meredith. They went out to his property and they realized that the structure that had been part of the amendment in 2014, that the bottom floor that was being used previously for commercial was being used residential. And the staff advised them, Mr. Meredith, that's not consistent with the zoning standards of the C1. And his response was, well, can I apply for amendment? And so that's why we're here tonight. We had an extensive discussion at the planning board meeting last month and discussed, whether it was appropriate to put that back in there. I think it's appropriate to note that residential uses are still allowed in the C1 because they allow the apartments. And this amendment would just allow duplexes. It's not opening it back up to single family, and it is just an amendment to the C1. It's not an amendment to the VC, which is the predominant commercial zoning district in the town of Duck. There was an analysis of the land use plan done, which is typical with all text amendments, and you will see that the policies of commercial development are pulled out for you, and that it is the staff conclusion that it is consistent with the land use plan. As I said, the planning board discussed this at their June meeting, and they reviewed the draft language, and they voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the language and that specific text amendments. So if it is the consensus of the town council to move forward with that, the next step would be to schedule a public hearing, and that public hearing can be held on August the 3rd to meet the statutory notice requirements. And I'll stop right there. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Adam, do we allow this in the VC area?
I'm sorry, say
Do
that.
we allow this in the VC area?
Do you allow the apartments or single family? No, single families are not, single-family residential are not allowed in any of the commercial districts now. Duplexes. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Yes, duplexes are allowed, I believe.
Is this the only C1 district we have?
No, sir, there's another smaller C1. If we can zoom out from that, there's a smaller C1 that's a little bit further south, I believe. North, I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
It's been a long time since I had to look at the Duck zoning map. So you have two smaller areas. Again, the predominant commercial district is the village commercial. Most of the property in the C1 is already developed, and the proposed language.
Oh, that's up at the, where the paper canoe is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The proposed language would make it duplexes consistent with the R2, which is a 25,000 square foot lot. So that's a fairly big lot. So it's not as if the amendment would open up the ordinance and that there's going to be a rush of people coming in. At least that was the way that the staff approached it, and the planning board agreed with that.
If we were to approve this, could, for example, hypothetically, could someone buy these properties from whoever the owner is, not do business there anymore, but just turn it into duplex complexes within the guidelines of the zoning requirements?
Yes, sir. If they had the minimum lot size and they could meet the parking standards, then they could convert it to a duplex. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But again, doing so is not necessarily as simple as what you would think. They're going to have to, in most cases, expand their wastewater system.
Right.
And so that's often very tricky.
I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I was just curious as to whether they could do
yes,
that.
that's definitely a possibility.
Donna, the lots, are they all over 22,000 square feet?
Some of them were and some of them were not. Most of the property that is developed was single family. I'm trying to recall my research that I did at the planning board meeting. Most of the lots were less than the 25,000 square feet. Mr. Meredith's is above that. He has more than that, so that works for him. But again, it's a very narrow range of opportunity if the C1 is opened up to the duplexes. questions.
Thank you, Donna.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion by council? I'll entertain a motion to send it to public hearing.
Okay, I'll make a motion as soon as I pull this up here. Whoops, wait a minute. Thank you. I'll make a motion that we hold a public hearing for discussion of ordinance 2205, amending several sections of the Ducktown Code to accommodate the addition of residential duplex structures as a permitted use in the C1 Neighborhood Commercial Conventional Zoning District.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Donna. Item number 8, items referred to in presentations from the town attorney. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Tyler Gillum. Stand up, Tyler. He's our summer law clerk this summer. He is a rising third-year law student at Wake Forest, and he is a graduate of the University of Missouri. And he's actually worked on a potential ordinance to amend your code that hopefully you'll be seeing in the not-too-distant future. So he's already done some work for you already this summer. So I just want to introduce him. They want to come to the meeting and see how business is done here. So anyway.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Thank you, Robert. Welcome, Tyler.
I don't have anything else unless there are any questions about other items.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Item number 9, items referred to in presentations from the town manager. Drew?
So we'll do our department updates. I'll ask Chief Black, Ms. Cross, Lieutenant Clark, Ms. Legner, and then Ms. Barnes.
Take your time. It's the Donna flip up here. All right, good evening. I have a short presentation tonight. I know it's been a long week for everyone, but this will be our review of the June activities for Duck Fire, and we'll start with calls for service. This is a picture. We had a weird 24 hours, June 13th, June 14th. June 13th was the structure fire, which I'll talk about in a minute. June 14th, we had an accident up near Sanderling that involved an ambulance from Currituck, so that's just one of the pictures from it, just so you could see. Same crew was on for parts of that, but I thought I'd show a picture. All right, we'll start. You can look at our numbers compared to last year. 71 calls for service last June, 97 for this June. So definitely we've been busy. I will tell you we're on June 6th and we've already run 31 calls since July 1. So we're definitely feeling the heat of the summer, and the folks, everyone, firefighters, volunteers, and our career staff are doing great. Year to date, we've kind of leveled out a little. We had a couple months in there that were a little lower, so 236 calls to date. We run 550, 560, so we're almost to the halfway point. I'll be interested to see what happens when we get to July. When you break it down, again, about half our calls are going to be rescue 11 calls, so 51 out of 97. A lot of alarm activations right now. You'll see those numbers, and I know you get the weekly reports. A lot of them are cooking, and then a lot of them can be battery related, and so we'll go help, troubleshoot that. But this time of year, we tend to get those, just what it is. And then when you put it in the pie chart format, you can see about half is still medical, and then it's a little smattering of everything else now. Our June activities, 346 training hours. You'll see those go down a little bit with the summer. Everyone's running calls. Still, that's a pretty decent amount of hours for a month. 8 inspections. Normally, we don't push inspections into the summer. We're just trying to catch up with some re-inspects, and those will hold off now until fall, until after the Jazz Fest. So we had a structure fire. Are you going to hit this for me, Christian? Okay, I'll try it. So I just have, it's a 9-second video that's going to play that was sent to me. So let me see if I can. And I just want want to give you an opportunity to see in the video, before I hit it, you'll see I had 3 firefighters on and 2 are pulling a line to it. But just to give you an idea of when we get a fire, this is what our folks show up to. So, Christian, it's on my screen, but not up there.
I can see it up there in pink, the YouTube thing, but it's not playing.
Yes, that's here. We'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I can send it to you all by email. But basically what it shows is prior to us arriving. That's okay. And right when our folks get started, she's trying to see things happen. But we had a 3-person crew on that night, and then I was next in for response. And that's a typical response. So we always have minimum staffing of 3. So there's the picture. So it's going to run in a loop. So if you look in the bottom left there, you'll see our 2 firefighters. Our 3rd firefighter is at the engine. So they're pulling one of our large lines. So that is us on arrival, and that's our 2 firefighters starting operation. So it'll just repeat over and over. So you get the idea there. Again, I just wanted, we don't often get this footage, so I wanted to share it with you all. Thanks, Christian. We can be done with that. Then I'll show you some other pictures of what that did look like before our arrival, and then I'll show you some after pictures. And there's a method to my madness here. Am I in control again? Okay. So on the left here is before we arrived. So you saw the video of that picture basically right before our firefighters deployed the line. This is what it looked like. They deployed the line. The picture on the right is some drone footage because we had Christian actually go out there with Deputy Chief Bachelet, and we have some drone footage. So I'll show you a couple pictures. What I want you to get from this, it's very scary to look at, a lot of fire there, but we train on this constantly, and that's big water fast. So look how bad that fire looks on the left, and you can see the damage on the right. I'm going to show you another picture here. Now look at the back of the house on the left. Look how much of that duplex we actually saved. So as bad as that looked, we did this really quickly. To that, the 15 people staying on the left, we recovered probably 90%, if not more, of their personal items from that. So the reason I show you this is what we train to do. This is why we have staffing. Thank you. Our folks, our 3-person group can initiate holding the fire in check until obviously we get our mutual aid partners involved. They get Christian credit on the right, drone picture from the top. Scary to look at, but it came together. All of our training came together. Matt did a great job leading the crew. Our mutual aid partners came in. It was a little more comprehensive overhaul than we're used to. We had to get in there and hit hot spots and all, but they did a great job. So while there's loss, no one was injured, and we were able to do something we don't get to do often, and that's recover items for family members. Usually we have a lot more damage. So for us, successful in that, we were able to at least save some things. Unfortunately, the first part of the duplex was well involved when we got there. Next big news for the month, and I know Drew sent it out to you, that we did get our ISO 2 rating. That will take effect October 1st, 2022. Nags Head was the only other one on the beach. You will see some others. I think Kitty Hawk got it. It's a big thing for Duck to be a 2. Now we have to keep it, so now the pressure's on. But a great job by the entire staff to get to that. It's also Dare County Communications, it's Dare County Water, but really proud to be able to bring that to you all as a community. And then the last thing I have tonight is next week, July 13th, we turn 40. So on July 14th, the Morons are playing. We're going to join with the event staff and do a happy birthday duck fire. I'm going to have popcorn from the Outer Banks Popcorn Shop with our little logo on it, and we'll have staff and apparatus here. And with that, I'll take questions. This picture is post-fire. It's at the fire that I showed you, and the three, take Cameron out way over on the left there, the 3 standing there were on the crew that got there first. So they were the ones that initiated the June fire that they were able to put out without us. We had no calls ourselves, and I'm not sure law enforcement, I think they had a couple calls for complaints, but we had no fire related. No.
Good. Great. Happy
And I'll point out, as the chief has taken her seat, she mentioned the crew on the engine. So Engineer Munden was the person in charge. There wasn't a captain on that time. That's a testament to the leadership in the fire department of the captains, the deputy chief, and the chief, that if a captain, which you think is a pretty key player in an incident like this, is absent, that we have people that can move over into that right seat of the fire apparatus and take positive action and get positive outcome. It's training, experience, but it's also a culture of you make decisions, keep your people safe, put the fire out, but you make the decisions. And that's a testament, and hats off to Chief Black and her whole team, and to Engineer Munden. He did a really good job. Really good job.
Great.
Good. And with one full-time career firefighter and a part-time. So it was a crew that was kind of put together, but because they trained so hard and consistently together, you get a positive outcome. So good job, Chief.
Fantastic. Very great.
Muscle memory.
That could have been so much worse.
I don't know if you all noticed on that map that we had with the zoning stuff, there was no signature. We haven't had a zoning map, I'm talking while I'm waiting for the presentation to blow. We haven't had a zoning map update since 2004. We've had a lot of zoning map amendments, but we haven't actually taken that map, updated, and had it signed by a mayor. So, County, GIS staff, and asked them if they would do that Kingston, office. It's going to be uploaded to our website, and then I had the county print us a 6-foot-long one.
Sandy, when was the last time it was updated or signed? I didn't, wow.
Areas that are like kind of like bottlenecks, so to speak, where a lot of activity is happening. You can see here we've only had one new house permitted this month, whereas last year we had 4, and 1 in 2020. So that may be an indication that things are starting to mellow out a little bit. The market's changing, the interest rates are going up. Fortunately, some of the lumber prices are coming down, but it may be a little too late, and things might just kind of be leveling out. Something else that's going on, we're still working on the brick project and the road raising while we're still waiting on FEMA to actually go the money. We are still actively pursuing easements that are necessary for both temporary and permanent work that's going to happen on some Barrier Island. They're looking at putting storm tech chambers in, so we're looking at a permanent easement there. Pretty much everywhere else is a temporary easement just so they can do the work itself. We are also working on having some surveys updated to include normal water line. Previously, the normal water line was staked by VHB. We actually had Division of Coastal Management come out last week and do that for us. When they update the survey and the plans, they'll include the CAMA buffers and the CAMA AEC, which is all stuff that's necessary for the CAMA permit. And Alaskan duck. We did a lot of work on it in November last year to try and eradicate it. Then we came back in spring and actually cut out a bunch of the vines so that it would be easier to treat in the future. We did tree trimmings in March, and then we just recently went back on June 22nd with a small group of 5, Jim, Lou, and I, and then 3 other volunteers, and we put another herd on that Vitex. Hopefully when we go back in November, we'll be looking at even smaller strains of this invasive species. There are it's also spread or been identified in Kitty Hawk. Southern Shores has a pretty large strand, and Corova has a pretty large strand too. So the state's basically monitoring that. We're staying in touch with them and letting them know our progress, and they're extremely pleased with what we're doing. So we might end up doing another video this fall as well. We're into the new fiscal year, so duck trail improvements are on my radar. I saw Marty Barnett out last week doing some survey work for the next phase of the trail improvements between Blue Heron and Waxwing. I do expect that survey work will be completed and sent to our engineer, and the design work will be up next. I talked to Joe Anloff today, and he's just simply waiting on the survey work from Marty Barnett. So I expect we'll be on target for a fall start, with a bid going out sometime in July or August. I don't know if any of you walk the boardwalk. I know Sandy Whitman does, but back in January, we had another tidal gauge installed. This was installed by the state at no cost to us. It is pretty enormous, but it does a lot more than most things do. Like the last one we put up in Sanderling, it's very small. It's only going to measure water. This will actually predict water levels, and will be tied into the state's FIMAN system, which is the NC Flood Inundation Mapping and Alert Network, FIMAN. We expect that to go live with them in July, sometime this month. Also went to today's bi-weekly beach nourishment meeting. Right now it's being held in Kill Devil Hills because Kill Devil Hills is where the nourishment project is actively occurring. I expect the next one will be in Kitty Hawk on July 20th. But as of today, it looks like the schedule has kind of pushed back a little bit. Last time we met, it was going to be pushed up, and now we're finding out that they probably won't be mobilizing here until late September and then beginning work in October. That could be helpful. It could be problematic depending on the weather. So they're also working actively on some emergency operations plans in the event of weather. And that's my last slide, but I did forget to mention that we did all the beach cleanup after that nor'easter in May, and there was this one spot in Ship's Watch that was full of sargassum grass. And those of you who have been around for a while know that is just, it's almost impossible to get rid of, but it was littered with debris as well. And so Merrick was like, I can't clean all that up. We went out at the request of some of the property owners in Ship's Watch and looked at it, and Jim and I, actually he put the call out, and we had a volunteer group of like 20 people come out and literally sift through this grass, put it in trash cans, and then Merrick's crew hauled it off and put it in a dumpster. So it just speaks to the community that we have. People came from Ship's Watch. We're like, we're doing this in Ship's Watch. People came from Sanderling. They came from all over the town to help. And it was just, it was a hot morning. I think I went home. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. So I just wanted to speak to that. And I think there was one other thing. Am I missing something else? That's all I have. Thank you. Any Oh, and we're going to have there's new zoning maps tomorrow. Any questions?
Sandy, that Vitex, is that native to North Carolina or?
No. It's native to probably North Korea.
North Korea?
Yeah, it's actually mostly found on the Pacific coast. So that's why I think if you do some research on it, it's native to Korea, or that's where it's come from. But I think it found its way to the Pacific Coast out in Hawaii. I know that one of the owners in this area is from Hawaii, so I think that that's how it got here. But I can't say that for certain because it's not just here, it's in Carteret County. They have large strands of it in Carteret County. So somehow it got here. You know, it's a beautiful plant, it's pretty, but it's very invasive.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Sandy.
Great work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What is, Duck's just so amazing, even the plant life wants to come visit. Just to go over a few things, I'm going to keep this short myself too. We had a total of 1,273 total calls this over June. The cool thing about that is only 254 of those calls were initiated by Dare Central by calls coming in. So 1,019 calls were self-initiated. To me, that is something we're really proud of. Our officers are not sitting and waiting for calls to happen. They're out there, you know, looking for things, deterring things before they end up with a call. They're out and about. The public knows them. The businesses know them by name. They have their cell phone numbers, and it just is indicative of a really good working relationship. With that, call volume is definitely up. As we know, traffic's heavy. Noise complaints from the parties. Most of that stuff has been pretty well handled. No big incidents or anything, just loud music, pools, and people just out having a good time. A lot of our calls, distracted drivers, Dare Central calls them in as careless and reckless drivers. Usually ends up people looking at their phones trying to find directions somewhere. We haven't had any major incidents from any of them, but we're getting a lot more calls like that. People just concerned about how drivers are going up and down the roads. We had 15 accidents in June. None of those were serious accidents, mostly fender benders, crosswalks, and some of those related to distracted driving. Our traffic enforcement is up. I think we had 173 traffic enforcement actions. As always, we try to keep those to warning tickets if possible. Any egregious speeds, or if it's in areas where we've got a heavy volume of foot traffic and stuff, then we're probably more likely to give a little stronger nudge there. Business checks continue, 667 extra patrols. This time of year, they go down a lot just from, that's more during our off seasons when people are out of town. We had 3 arrests. 2 of those were related to narcotics, and then 1 was from a federal warrant. With the help of Christian and Chief and a few of the officers, we've really started working towards educating people with the golf carts. You know, we've got the ones that are the LSVs that are licensed to be on the road, and then we have the ones that are just the regular electric golf carts. And people don't really seem to understand, you know, what are the rules, what are the regulations. Poor Nicole gets calls. I don't know if Town Hall, if you guys do too, but she's inundated with calls. So we kind of tried this new initiative to educate people. Benny Baldwin and Christian and Benny's son worked on this along with Mitch and Tim. So let's see if I can get this to play. I'm watching.
LSVs are street vehicles and really function the same as any other motor vehicle as driving your car through town. Please remember that a properly licensed driver must be Your LSV rental company may require an age minimum or 80 pounds that are not in an appropriate child safety seat. LSVs are not exempt from fender benders or more serious accidents when traveling 25 to 35 miles per hour. You wouldn't take the chance in your car or SUV, so please note in your vacation LSV rental. And remember, an LSV counts as a car. No driving on trails, sidewalks, or other areas not meant for motor vehicles.
Company or the town of Duck Police. Find out more about LSPs on our website, townofduck.com.
Very cute.
So hopefully with that message out, we can kind of help people understand, what is it we're looking for? What are our requirements? And we're not having to deal with them in an accident where something could have been avoided. I'm sure all of y'all have seen the children just riding in the back seat or somebody riding around holding a kid. We're really, really pushing to educate people and stopping them and just having a conversation. But hopefully this being out will help us with that as well. All right. That's right, I can go and go to the next one. Another thing we did is, along with Christian and Chief and the staff, we put these stickers together. We're taking these around to all the rental companies, and also they're available to any rental companies. Monica, if you guys need any, if people know. The golf cart rental places are great about letting people know that these are the conditions, this is the age group and stuff. But these are available to put on the golf carts so that if there's any question at all that information is here. And Christian did the cool little code here that you can scan, and it's going to give you all our ordinances and information about the LSVs and the golf carts.
How do we get those stickers? Just come to your office?
I have a bunch of them. I can give you some or swing by. So it's got all it has to be a licensed driver, seatbelt, the 8 years old and 80 pounds, all of that information is there. And that way they can't say when they get in, I didn't know, because it'll be right there in front of them.
That's great.
And this is my last slide. And I kind of use the thing, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And the cool thing here is our police and fire departments work exceptionally well together. Chief Black was talking about that fire. The first person there was Kelly Hill. She's been here less than a year. She was at an agency that didn't respond to fire calls, but she is bought in, and she was out there getting people out before anybody else arrived. The relationships that we're building, these guys, first class, I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. But with that, I'll take any questions.
Lieutenant, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you having any difficulty with the motorized scooters, the two-wheel scooters?
We are just starting to see those and those one-wheel roller things both and we've started to address those as well and educating them. They have to be, there are no motorized vehicles allowed on the trail. So that's the next latest and greatest, and the rental companies are renting them out as well. So we're just now trying to get information on what their requirements are and what they're telling these people as they rent those.
I mean, they really look dangerous, and they really go at pretty high speeds.
Yes.
They are on the boardwalks already in the mornings.
You're seeing them on the boardwalks as well? Okay.
Yes, on boardwalk. Yeah. Oh, really?
Okay.
The second question I have is, how was your night, July 4th?
We actually, it wasn't that busy for us. We had a few complaints. The officers dealt with them. Most of it was just stuff on the ground, nothing too serious. Actually, it was probably the calmest we've had.
That's good.
They're all busy at the parade.
Yes, yes. All right. Any other questions?
Thank you, Lieutenant.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Well, mine works perfectly.
When it comes up here. Sorry, I thought I had the videos prepared, but yeah, no, I'm not. Well, there will be no video playing on mine. Good evening, council, and happy post-4th of July. We know that you want us to come back with a full debrief about the 4th of July parade, but we have not had time to meet about that yet because it was so recent. So I did want to show you some fun pictures of a successful event.
Yep.
So I'll just scroll through quickly.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. And one of the things that I will say is we were very well organized this year after we looked over a lot of our plans with public safety. And so this is the first parade where I've been able to spend quite a bit of time taking photos. So I was very excited about that. And the ones marked winner are the floats that won one of the excuse me, one of the judges' awards or mayor's awards. And I did get them. They were already in the parking lot at the time I got them, but Renee Landry's Tap Shack. And here we are in the town park. One of the things we added this year is I talked to Kona Ice about a discounted rate for us to come to the park. And while it's a little extra money for us to spend, it was a really huge hit and created a lot less waste than when we try and do the little icy pops. A lot less stickiness as well. And we had Paul Lesowitz and his band play. I can keep going. Had the kids dancing as usual. And I did want to say a special thank you to our public safety team. I know that Lieutenant Clark just mentioned it, but it was really, really great to work with that entire team as we did revamp some of our plans for this year's 4th of July parade. So that's all I will say about 4th of July for now. Either next month or September, we'll have a full debrief for you of our incident action plan. I did just want to give a quick update on how summer events are going. They're going like gangbusters. We have had 28 events so far with 2,700 attendees, and we are just getting started. There are so many more events to be had this summer. So Betsy is doing a really great job. She got a lot of really great acts to come this year. And I unfortunately missed the flexible comedy yesterday because I was off. I'm very sad, but she got some video for me. So we're moving forward with these, and everyone seems to be very happy with what we're putting out. So, and thank you to everyone who volunteers at these events. And that's all I have for tonight because I wanted to make sure you saw 4th of July photos. Any questions?
Just one, when you do the debriefing, are you going to have an estimate on the number of people that attended?
Yes. So I am very bad at looking at a huge space like that and guessing how many people are there. But we did have Benny Baldwin came and he did some drone footage for public safety, but we are getting that drone footage as well. And there's some really great kind of apps out there that take the square footage, that take the area of a spot, and then there's formulas, where people standing shoulder to shoulder, where they a foot apart, and it'll calculate an estimated number of people. So I'm going to do that because I'm really bad at estimating. Maybe Mr. Havens has an estimate. No.
It looked really great, really good attendance.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna have to use math and some sort of software to help me. It works very well. But we will have some, when we get all that raw video from Benny, I'll be able to pull more photos from that, aerial photos, and we'll have some aerial footage that we can use for promoting next year's. Any other questions?
just great work.
All right, thank you guys. I'll put. I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. So I'm going to give you a quick monthly financial update. Our monthly cash balances, total cash on hand as of June 30th was $16,156,920. When comparing to last year's June 30th cash balance, excluding the beach nourishment funds for the new project, there's been a 26% increase. So that is great. The town ended June with approximately $1,175,663 held in the general checking account, which is
9.9%, so it's right around that 10% we like to keep in there. The remaining funds are in the investment accounts and the beach nourishment bond accounts. Here you'll see the total revenue collections for this year compared to the budget as well as the prior fiscal year in June 2021. The sales and use tax revenues received for the March collections were in the amount of $135,467. Property tax revenues included collections through May 31st of 2022. This brings the town to 99.96% collected, which is amazing. Our remaining tax receivable balance is only $1,500. Motor vehicle tax revenues received in June were $2,091 for May collections. The occupancy tax received in June were for the April collections in the amount of $122,413. We also received the Technology to Support Future Needs grant from the Albemarle Commission, and that is going to fund our records retention program. So that was great. It was in the amount of $29,300. We also received the remaining $24,000 for the Shoreline grant to help with our beach planning efforts in fiscal year 2022. And then our investment earnings continue to increase with our North Carolina Capital Management Trust account. Our monthly yield as of June 30th was 1.27%, with total earnings $7,644. So that basically doubled what our year-to-date interest earnings were. Now we have the expenditures comparison with the current budget and prior year totals. Overall, our expenses were within budget. And then as you can see from this bar graph, the revenues can fluctuate from month to month. As of right now, the expenses outweigh the revenues for June. As I noted in the monthly financial statement you received from Drew, these are not the final numbers. As of June 30th, we will continue to record additional revenues and expenditures for the next few months as they come in. And I will continue to give you updates in August and September with those. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Jessica, which revenue numbers are lagging? Occupancy and sales tax? And,
We still have to receive the, I'm sorry, drawing a blank. The real estate transfer tax. We need the ABC and mixed beverage tax. And I believe 2 more months of sales tax. We have quite a few to go. Yeah.
that's going to boost that number quite a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Going on to item number 10, the mayor's agenda. A couple items I have tonight. I did have my mayor's chairman meeting in June, the 28th, sponsored by Kill Level Hills. And unfortunately, the chairman wasn't there, but the mayor's had good discussion. One of the items I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes is one of the topics that we did discuss. Of course, we talked about traffic, and as you know, Southern Shores this weekend suspended their barricades. They got both positive and very negative reactions to their barricades. I'm not sure, I know they suspended them this weekend, I'm not sure they're going to continue to put them out over the weekends per Mayor Maury. I'd like to once again remind the council, and I did send a memo to council yesterday, that it's the time for our town manager's performance review. So that's now in process. You've got the blank. No action required by council until we get our town manager's input, which is, I think, around July 20th. And then we'll have a couple weeks to prepare that for the first meeting in August. Once again, thanks to Christian and Betsy and Drew and the entire town staff and police and fire and ocean rescue and volunteers. Great 4th of July parade and celebration. It was so great to get back to it after so many years of COVID, get back to normalcy, and there's no doubt that the people enjoyed it. And my observation was it was as well attended as any of them, maybe even more. When you get over to Christopher, they are packed in. So, and then the last thing I want to talk about, and Ben Cahoon, I put something at your places for council and attorney and manager. Ben Cahoon, mayor of Nags Head, brought up an issue to all the coastal mayors up and down the North Carolina coast about sand holes and the issue that they're having with them with respect to people digging holes and then leaving the beach and damaging, individuals as well as equipment, and you can't see them at night. And of course, over the years, we've had that problem. And if we can't get the people to fill them back in, I know that we have the lifeguards, address the holes on the beach and fill them in, or if need be, get, Ben with his tractor, I guess. But it's definitely an issue. And so Ben is asking, basically, asking the coastal mayors, would you like to, in fact, take some legislative action, go to the legislature and kind of look for some rules and regulations, in fact, control that and make that an offense on the beach, give us a little bit more police power on it. And he's getting very positive feedback. I gave him feedback saying, we're dealing with it, but I would support legislation, but I said, what I really want to do is get consensus of council to make sure the council would like to, in fact, see some greater level of legislation and enforcement on the beach of digging sand holes, whether we'd outlaw them or whether, in fact, they'd be regulated or whether, in fact, people would be forced to fill them back in. I don't know what the legislation would be, but I guess what I'd like to do is just get kind of a consensus here from the council that's here present tonight, whether or not you would want to pursue something like that with the other mayors up and down the coast. So my letters kind of explains what Ben did, a little background. Drew and I discussed it. I think Drew made some very good comments in his response back to me that I therefore copied back to Ben. So I guess I'd just kind of like to take a straw vote here with respect to how you would feel about supporting an effort like that. So I'll start with anyone who would like to talk about it.
I strongly support it after some of the actions I've seen on the beach the last few years. I know I've had a few times that I've had to call Merrick to have his lifeguards come down and speak to the people and have the holes filled in. I mean, I've seen people dig holes, let it fill up with water and put their kids in it, and the wave comes in, just over the kid, or the holes are so deep that the sides are caving in, and the parents are standing there with their kids. It's just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the legislature can do and how that would all work, but if it helps empower and educate people about these safety hazards, then I'm in favor of pursuing it.
Are we legislating, sounds kind of trite here, doesn't it? Are we legislating deep holes or holes in general?
I think, quite honestly, I think a lot of that would be determined.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody, digs a little hole and builds a sandcastle, but some of these people, it looks like they're trying to dig through the earth.
I agree with you. It's common sense doesn't prevail anymore, it doesn't seem. But you hate to ban, some 5-year-old kids digging in the ground and making some sandcastles,
Yep.
We don't want to get that ridiculous, but when someone starts digging a 4-foot deep hole, that's dangerous.
Yes.
It's dangerous even if they do fill it in when they're done. It's still dangerous in the process of doing it, But I think we just have to be careful that we don't, sound like, Scrooge came to duck. That would be my comment.
I'd just like to add one more thing. Is I've seen where the families come down with shovels to dig these holes.
Yeah.
It's not just a little plastic shovel.
Well, yeah, you wonder about it because, it's just, maybe there's just a lot of frustration out there and it helps people, or it's just sort of, if you come, if it's there, I will dig, or I don't know what's motivating people, but it is a very interesting phenomenon. And I don't get to the beach enough to see a lot of holes being dug, but I like your approach of notifying the lifeguards so that they have a bit more of authority as opposed to getting into any kind of, if I saw someone digging a hole, I would say to them before I left, hey, just making sure you know that there is a rule that you have to, so in other words, common sense and helping each other know each other about what the rules are without any kind of confrontation is good. Just catching people, if they're digging them at night, that's a whole nother problem. But I understand what you're saying, Tony, about not being, a nanny thing. And that's why I would support the effort to look into it, but certainly would want to see what was coming out of it. Sometimes if you don't know what you're going to get, you don't want it to go overboard with regulation and making it seem like that you can't have any fun. But it's that whole education piece that seems to be important for NAG's Head this year, and certainly what we saw in New Jersey. I saw a little young man bury himself the other day when I was down there, and just put a hat over his face, and I thought, wow, that looks scary. It was a shallow thing that, he was skinny enough that he could bury himself. But it is just curious that people like to dig when they're down here.
Yeah, I think if you look at Ben's note to the mayors and talks about the numbers, I mean, they had 52 cases and 31 of the people died, where they were trapped in holes.
Guess what? That's more than shark bites.
Yeah.
That's more than people die from shark bites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even just the beach. I mean, Utah, there was some fatalities, I remember.
And there is, so our ordinance does include a prohibition against digging holes, but it's a civil penalty, and you have to then find who to issue that civil penalty to, and there's kind of, we're lacking in kind of collection ability of that. So I think what the Mayor Cahoon is trying to do is make this a state statute that then would be like a ticket or a summons that would be issued. So there would be, I think they're looking to make this a criminal offense.
Yeah.
Mr. Hobbs has something.
Yeah, just I guess a couple things. One is that, it's certainly worth, I think, looking at, and it may be something that could potentially even be a local act. And secondly, there may be other coastal states that have some similar type of legislation that maybe that could be looked at. Certainly this is not the only state that's been pointed out earlier that this is an issue, and so part of that process could be, what other states coastal states have done on both coasts to address this.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Well, I think I've got enough direction here from council. I think we'd be looking to participate in certainly in something that's reasonable. I mean, I think this is a year away from anything really developing, but I didn't want to really move forward saying, yeah, as a town, we'll support it until I really had council feedback. That's my report. We'll go on to item number 11, council members' agenda, starting with Mayor Pro Tem Monica.
Thank you, Mayor. I first really just want to thank Public Safety. We met some of our wonderful lifeguards today, and I know they're out there trying to help everybody every day. And our Public Safety, our fire and police are just, just amazing. The leadership, as we've heard and seen, and the capabilities of our local. I can't say enough about how proud I am to be part of this town, and how appreciative I am, because you're taking care of a lot more than just the residents. There's so many visitors. So staff, the way everybody was at the parade, it was just so great to see everybody, and coming out and working on your day off when you normally would have a holiday was just something I appreciate. I just want to publicly thank everyone for that. It was a wonderful day, and the weather cooperated, and looks like most of the people cooperated, so it was just a great showing. The tragedy that we saw at the other 4th of July parade was just, in Illinois, was just unspeakable, and I know those are the kind of things that our public safety folks were thinking about, and, frankly, we're concerned about having another parade, but getting back to it as a lovely celebration. I hope we didn't bother the neighbors too much with our traffic, but hopefully everybody got through it. And just want to thank everyone for that. On the Visitors Bureau side, I'm the vice chair this year, and we are the chairman and the executive director, Tim Cafferty and Lee Nettles, have been doing road shows to all the different towns, and so I would love to get get them to come and do their presentation, their dog and pony, as they like to call it, to the town. I've spoken to our town manager and mayor about it, and it looks like we might try to invite them for either August or October. So I'll report back on that once I get in touch with them and see what works best for everyone. And some good things happening at the Visitors Bureau. They are going to be reinstating this year after COVID the tourism summit that they do locally. We don't have a venue yet, but I'm excited about that. That's in the fall, so more to come on that. And there is, I can't recall what the name of the meeting is, but they are, some of the state tourism folks are meeting at Sanderling Inn in the next several weeks. So that's nice to get Duck on the map with all these state folks again. So when I have some details on that, I'll send out a little notice. Because I'm sure would be invited and maybe would like to have the mayor stop by and say hello. So that's all I have for tonight. Just a big, big, huge thank you to everybody for all the work.
Thank you, Monica. Councilmember Sandy Whitman.
I'd like to also thank the town staff, everyone that helped out with the parade and make it such a success. And I do have a couple other things. We all received a letter yesterday from Mark Murray. And I think that's something that we should look into and maybe at one of our future meetings discuss it. And the other thing is our public hearings that we've been having. It seems that the general public that gets up to speak is kind of attacking our staff. And I feel that there should be some sort of a separation between staff and these people that are making their comments. And I'm just looking at it for a safety feature. That's it.
We go back to that letter that Mark sent, because I did have a discussion with Drew, and I think Drew's having a discussion with Robert, and I think we need to certainly understand what the state statute is and make sure we're in compliance, especially on quasi-judicial.
Yes.
And it sounds like, in fact, our process where we're taking recommendation of the planning board is really not what should be happening, and I know we've done that over the years. So I think right now the action item is probably with Robert to come back.
Mr. Havens and I have been discussing that, and we'll be looking into that further and make a recommendation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Councilmember Tony Shadow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would add my thanks to everybody. It was a great 4th of July parade. It really was. And I know everybody worked hard, and it was obvious. Things like that don't happen by accident. You could see the work and the thought and the planning that went into it. It was wonderful. People that I talked to loved it. They were so happy to be back to, quote, normalcy again after 2 years of, no parade and COVID and all of that. They really enjoyed it. The snow cones were a big hit. I might have been the biggest hit of the day, and I had my first snow cone ever. Yeah. It was delicious. So thank you all very much. There was no government access committee meeting this month, no business. So the meeting was canceled. And then I just had an issue that I had raised on assist chair, or should we talk about that now? Yeah. So a neighbor of mine, when I was off on my walk, her husband, Chuck Straw, broke his hip and called upon our fire and police, to help him get down the stairs because they don't have an elevator. And obviously we did, and we did it very well and very prompt, and they were so happy and thankful and so on, as everybody is, by the way, who I know uses that service. They're always praising the department for that. But Gail raised a question in that her understanding was that the chair went with the ambulance whenever it went out on a call. I don't know if that's true or not true, but that's what she understood. And one time when Chuck had to come down, the ambulance was on a call and there was no chair, and they had to come and physically, carry him down. It all worked out. But her question was, should we consider buying a second chair so that there's always one at the, at the safety building if the ambulance goes off with the chair? And she suggested, she said, well, I'd even be willing to contribute toward it. And I said, well, I'm sure a lot of people would be, but I'm not sure that we shouldn't have it anyway as part of our, our equipment list. So I guess my question is, should we just buy another chair so there's always one available at the public safety facility, even if the ambulance is out on the road? That's the issue I put before us tonight.
And I had provided some information, but I think I shared with the council. So it's called a stair chair, is what they call them. It's typical equipment for Dare County EMS ambulances. A patient assist so someone calls and says, I need help getting from the first floor to the second floor, that is an EMS call. So Dare County EMS is dispatched as the primary agency. Duck Fire is dispatched to assist. We don't own a stair chair, and really we can't carry one, and the chief's back, I'm glad she's back. We can't carry one on the engine because of space considerations. So if we had one, could we use it? Yes, and then yes and. So it would need to be stored in the firehouse, put into a pickup truck, and taken to the scene to use, assuming that we get there ahead of the ambulance for that.
So when Chuck was brought down, was that Dare EMS that did that?
Yes.
It wasn't us?
Well, it very likely was our, go ahead, Chief Black will have more.
Can you hear me? Okay. So if there's a patient, so your friend that was taken down, most likely was Dare County EMS and us. To use a stair chair, you can do it with a minimum of 2 people. It's sometimes better for 3 or 4, depending, you know, our house is here. So we were probably both doing it. Fire, we will help all day long. We just don't.
To expand a little bit, a patient assist, when we get one, when we get that call, it is a medical determined call until proven otherwise. If we had one, yes, we could store it in the station and we could use it. So if we get someone that frequently we know is just that we need help with the cars on the 3rd floor, that is an opportunity where we can assess and say, EMS, you can cancel, we've got it, if we have that piece of equipment. Until this year, we haven't had the staffing capability to do that, so you can come to you and say, hey, it'd be great to have one of these chairs. They're expensive. I actually have a picture in anticipation of this.
Yep.
So it's still going to be a Dare County EMS call unless we are comfortable that we can handle the situation ourselves. If we had one that would help us, the community in Dare County at times, they're not cheap.
Okay. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that it was an EMS call. I don't know if Gail fully understood that, because she saw both, you probably saw both teams, both teams there. But I guess what I would be supportive of getting one if you felt that it was something that we could use and would be good to have, and you were, staffed to handle it. If not, then that I understand. But
I wouldn't turn down the opportunity for us to have one if there's money for it. Again, they're not cheap, and until now with the staffing, I wouldn't have come to you. Deputy Chief Bachelet and I have talked about it. There's times, we have someone right now we're going to pretty regularly. We probably could handle and not tie up EMS. The other piece, just to realize, a patient assist is a low priority call.
Right.
So if we're on a different type of call, and I know that happened, they may have to wait. It may not be on the call, but more than happy to help. Something that could be great in the arsenal. We could look at costs. I can bring them back to Drew.
Any idea, Chief?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you keep saying they're not cheap. Any idea what kind of range of the budget they are?
So Mr. Shiano reached out yesterday, so we were just noodling around. Refurbs are anywhere from $2,600 to $3,500. Brand new is probably several thousand more. So it's not tons of money. Again, it's not just our primary equipment.
Right.
I would actually probably talk to Chief Collins and see if they have a better location to get one. So.
Well, I would be in favor of us exploring that and having you come back and tell us, can we afford it? Would we want to do it, and should we do it, and see where it goes.
Be glad to.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Tony. Anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to item number 12, additional public comments. Would anybody in the public like to address the council again this evening? Please go forward to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. There being no one, would anyone else like to, any other business to come before the council this evening from the council? There being none, I'll remind the council our next scheduled meeting will be the regular meeting on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. With that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.
It's a lot earlier than